No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 468. Good evening to you, or good day. Breaking right now. The establishment and the mainstream media launch a twisted campaign against Restore Britain after Rupert Lowe's patriotic party surges in national polling, infuriating and increasingly worried Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
And the Lowe thing, it's one angry man saying stuff on the internet. Look, let him do what he wants. He doesn't worry me.
Farage has now ordered his propaganda channel GB News to censor all discussion of Restore Britain, which we saw play out live on air during a shocking interview hosted by Tom Harwood.
Well, actually, Reform is third to the table on this. The SDP and Restore have both said exactly the same thing. And it's time that people like started, I just want to make this point, started constructively towards this.
We are in an election period, Henry, so we do need to be careful about party political politics in discussions like this. But we will have you back after the 7th of May and litigate party political policy at a time when we're legally allowed to do so. Henry Bolton, thanks indeed for joining us.
Astonishing. But as the Times newspaper launches a shocking and lazy hit piece attempting to link Restore to fascists, even the Daily Telegraph's Camilla Tominey is having to admit her Whopert Lowe nickname needs to be retired.
Restore Britain, run by Rupert/Whopert Lowe, as we like to call him because he has been slightly conspicuous by his absence from anywhere other than X, because haven't the Reform lot done a calculation that if Restore gets anything over 3%, then they're a bit screwed?
And by the way, anyone sane knows why Restore Britain's hardball approach is needed.
In England alone, right now, 10 major cities, including London, now have Muslim mayors in a nation that was built around the Church of England. Muslims are now running major cities across the country for the first time in history, and the English want us to believe that this is all normal.
Yet we're screwed because of suicidal leftists like this.
I'm not surprised that so many young people are feeling so disconnected and in this world in which we live in which they don't see the investment in themselves, in which they do see, the climate crisis in their future. They do see the way in which Trump is behaving.
We live today in an increasingly unstable world. As a result, more and more people are being forced to flee their own homes in search of safety elsewhere.
So why the MSM is wrong on Restore Britain in my digest next. Then Leo Kearse joins Outspoken for the entire show. Also coming up today, GB News is accused as Eamonn Holmes remains in hospital after a horror stroke as his ex-wife Ruth Langsford comes back into the picture. And Justin Trudeau's girlfriend Katy Perry accused of lesbian sex assault by Orange is the New Black actress Ruby Rose, who has reported the I Kissed a Girl singer to the police. We'll get into that extraordinary story later. Then, in the Royal Uncancelled After Show on Substack, what Meghan Markle really said as she arrived at an Australian children's hospital for her grossest stunt yet. Our Royal Mastermind and Prince Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, will be here. You can sign up to watch over on Substack. www.outspoken.live is the address. So, myself and Leo have also nominated for today's Worst Britain in the World. That's our Union Jackass, which we will reveal at the end of the show alongside our Greatest Britain. So today, Leo has gone for Ed Miliband for his ridiculous energy policy that means solar might overwhelm grid. Very interesting for me to see that Donald Trump has just been targeting our energy policy on Truth Social this afternoon. He's also gone for, and I love this choice, I think I'd actually probably vote for this choice, Alfonso Rudicabana, for letting his son hoard knives and make poison. By contrast, I've gone for Prince Harry for his Australian tour, but trust me, when I show you this footage later in the show, you're going to understand why. So 3 very different options for you there. Get voting in the live chat. Keep your comments coming through. I will read some out at the end of the show. But now, let's go. Very few people deny that Reform UK is going to have a massive local election result next month. Along with the tip whisperer himself, Zach Dave Polanski of the Islamo-Trans Green Party, Nigel Farage will smash the two-party system once and for all. I have no doubt about that. But then there's trouble coming for the increasingly establishment and centrist reform from the right, with its own internal polling showing that even 3% support for Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain could destroy Farage's chances of becoming Prime Minister. And by the way, Restore are not satisfied with 3% or 13% or even 23% support. They are gunning for government. And an increasing number of Reform voters are becoming convinced that Restore's hardball approach is the only way to save Britain from an Islamist takeover, with new polling that I exclusively revealed showing that a huge number of Reform voters want to see Rupert Lowe as Prime Minister. And that's why this week, from another private jet, Farage has just attacked Restore Britain as one angry man saying stuff on the internet. But as the party responded, there's a lot more than one of us now, Farage. 128,000 and counting. Here's that shock MSM Farage attack.
And the Lowe thing, it's one angry man saying stuff on the internet. Look, let him do what he wants. He doesn't marry me.
Let's not forget that Farage, this is Restore Britain's response, Yusuf and Anderson tried to put Rupert in prison on false allegations because he backed the deportation of Pakistani child rapists and their foreign accomplices. He'd still be in prison now if they succeeded, so he has every right to be angry, and I do agree with that. And Rupert isn't backing down from his vision of how Britain needs to be restored.
I think all of us can see quite how badly it's gone wrong. And look, I mean, we're a different party. I don't plead for people's votes. I say we are here. If you agree that Britain needs to be restored, then vote for us. But we are not like politicians who are craving power. We are an option which people can vote for if they agree with us that things need radical change. And if we attain power, there will be radical change. And the change basically will be that we will put the British people at the top of the agenda, and we will protect their interests in every possible way we can.
But reformists like Matt Goodwin are now obsessed with doing down Restore. The party's Alan Partridge figure posted on X, Reform UK is standing in 99.9% of wards. The monster raving loonies are standing in 0.4% of wards. And someone called Restore are standing in 0.3% of wards. Britain does not have time for anything other than a serious alternative. Vote Reform, get Starmer out. So you can see there everything he's trying to do. Matt Goodwin thinks you're stupid. He thinks you don't even know who Restore Britain is. But actually what he's doing is proving how worried Reform and Reform shills like him are. Restore is actually standing in no seats at these local elections. Goodwin got that wrong. Rupert Lowe is focusing all of his attention on Great Yarmouth First, a local party, a hyper-local party in his constituency, in a test run of what Restore wants to do at the general election. I think it's smart. I really do. Yet despite that fact, GB News has continued its outrageous ban on Restore Britain and Rupert Lowe on Nigel Farage's orders. I want you to see what happens here. When Henry Bolton mentions Restore Britain and the GB News propagandist Tom Harwood immediately censors the conversation.
The answer to this problem is to stop making the United Kingdom attractive. And that, in my books, means detaining securely every single person that comes across. Now, I mean, I'm going to make a political point here because I'm sick and tired of something. Zia Yusuf has said that only Reform would do this. Well, actually, Reform is third to the table on this. The SDP and Restore have both said exactly the same thing. And it's time that people like Zia Yusuf... started. I just want to make this point.
Yeah.
Started constructively towards this.
We are in an election period, Henry, so we do need to be careful about party political politics in discussions like this. But we will have you back after the 7th of May and litigate party political policy at a time when we're legally allowed to do so. Henry Bolton, thanks indeed for joining us.
Oh, yeah, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny, Dawn? Yeah, there's just one party we can't talk about. Everyone else is fine. You know, you talk about reform as much as you want. You talk about Restore and we're going to boot you off, but we'll boot you off with a smile. Rupert was rightly furious. He responded, "This is absolutely outrageous. Watch this clip borders expert Henry Bolton getting shut down on GB News for even daring to speak of Restore Britain. Within 5 seconds of mentioning Restore, the host closes him down and stops the interview. Blatant censorship." Henry Bolton himself clarified, "I was discussing published political policies on illegal entry and small boats, not judging policies, but correcting Reform UK's false claim that it alone has proposed detention of illegal entrants. The moment I mentioned that similar policies have also been published by the SDP and Restore Britain, I was cut off. Broadcasters should challenge and allow challenge of any party falsely presenting itself as uniquely committed to a policy where such a claim is not true. Reform is not the only party to have made that commitment. The SDP and Restore Britain have both done so. This technically matters as well as politically, because on an issue of such importance as our national border security, which requires public support, the public should be informed accurately, not misled by false and factually misleading political narratives." Now, GB News reformer shills like Harwood and Stephen Barrett and Will Kingston have since tried to claim, and it's like, don't kid a kidder, guys, okay? I've been there. They've since tried to claim that the purdah period means that the broadcaster cannot cover Restore Britain, pointing to regulations from the off-communist government regulators. Now, trust me, I have spent many a broadcasting period through an election on both Talk TV and GB News. I won't bore you with a long spiel about British mainstream broadcasting regulation. It's shit. But what they're saying is absolute bull. It's just a point-blank lie. For example, this morning, Robert Jenrick of Reform UK was granted a lengthy interview on GB News. The Rupert Restore ban is a ban for political reasons. A ban that has been made because GB News has decided it will no longer be an independent news channel like it was when I hosted its first show. It rather is now a propaganda outfit to get Nigel Farage into Downing Street. Now, what might surprise some of you is I'm a capitalist and I'm a free speech absolutist. So I have absolutely no problem with GB News doing that. Love it. Love it. If that is going to be your business and you're prepared to keep on losing over £20 million a year to run this channel and get Nigel Farage into Downing Street, you go right ahead. Seriously, it is a free country for now. I just want some honesty about it, right? The establishment newspapers, though, like the Daily Telegraph and the Times, have also now joined what I believe is a coordinated smear campaign on Restore Britain, proving just how worried they are. Rupert explained, "A great example of how the mainstream media is so desperate to suppress Restore Britain's support. Piece in the Daily Telegraph today titled How the Minimum Wage Capital of Britain Became a Reform Stronghold. It's all about Boston, in Lincolnshire, a reform seat. It focuses on the manager of a pub in the town who talks about her struggles to make the business a success, entirely understandably. How does the article finish? Right at the bottom." And he quotes, "However, when the next general election comes, she is not voting reform again. She will vote for Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain party." Not exactly what the title suggests about a reform stronghold, is it? And even the awful Camilla Tominey is realising she's going to have to ditch her stupid Whopert nickname when talking about Lowe.
Restore Britain, run by Rupert Whopert Lowe, as we like to call him because he has been slightly conspicuous by his absence from anywhere other than X, they're on 4%.
Well, he's not entirely Whopert, is he? Because that's quite good.
I know, and this is worrying for Farage, isn't it, Tony? Because haven't the Reform lot done a calculation that if Restore gets anything over 3%, then they're a bit screwed?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's funny now is we used to talk about Reform splitting the right-wing vote. Now we're talking about Restore splitting the Reform vote. I mean, everything is just becoming totally fractured, as we'll get onto in our New Divided Britain series. But I think, if you look at the polling numbers, Reform were touching 30%. There were a couple of polls that had them over 30% a few weeks ago. Now they're back down to 24. The general polling average is about 23. And then you've got this kind of cluster about 4 points below, which is depending on what poll you look at, it's Labour, the Tories, the Greens, all together. So, yeah, I think Restore is a bit of an issue for Reform, but they are still 4 points ahead of literally everyone else.
As Restore's spokesperson for the safety of women and children, Orla Minihane, responded to that, Whopert Lowe, as we like to call him, is absent from anywhere other than X. Well, yes, Camilla, because propaganda TV won't invite him on, and MSM are in denial. Yet for someone so irrelevant, everyone seems pretty rattled by his achievements so far. The next year is going to be so much fun watching the establishment have a total meltdown. And the Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are fascists approach, we knew that was coming, right? Has been kicked off by the Times newspaper today. With this hit piece headline, neo-fascist leaders back Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain and not Reform. Now, Rupert immediately, he knew this was coming, posted, I see the Times have published a desperate hit piece attacking Restore Britain. They do, though, helpfully outline some of our key policies, as they call them. To quote their summary, mass deportations by removing the entire illegal immigration population of the UK, abolish the asylum system, restore a pro-British education system, end political Islam. Sounds bloody good to me. They also seem to get annoyed that we're stating the NHS should hire qualified British medical professionals over foreign nationals. I stand by every single word. All in all, a good promotion of our policy platform. First the media ignored us, now they're attacking us. We must be making progress. So here's the article in question. It's written by Matt Dathan, the Home Affairs editor for The Times, who writes, two of Britain's prominent neo-fascist leaders have pledged their support to Restore Britain, the new political party that is threatening to stop Nigel Farage winning a majority at the next election. Simon Burkett, the leader of the Woodlander Initiative, TWI, which is buying up land to build enclaves for white people, has told his followers that Restore Britain is the far-right's last hope for a political route into power. Another influential far-right figurehead to urge his supporters to follow Restore Britain is Steve Laws, who has called for the removal of all non-whites from the UK, said he is a proud racist and said Adolf Hitler was a misunderstood politician. Lowe and Restore Britain did not respond to questions about whether they welcomed the support of far-right extremists. Instead, Lowe accused the Times of a pathetic smear campaign. Since launching as a national party, Restore has polled as high as 10% in some surveys and now claims to have more than 120,000 members. It has peeled away some support from Farage's party by presenting itself to the right of Reform UK on social issues and immigration. In response to this article, Lowe said the Times newspaper has made no effort to report on our rapid growth, party registration, membership numbers, overtaking the Conservatives, not one word of fair reporting. There has been one article covering Restore Britain for which the Times newspaper was forced to issue an official correction apology because of the factual inaccuracies contained within it. Now this pathetic smear campaign. If the paper wants to discuss Restore Britain's stated policy positions, I will be very happy to help. I will defend our position and our position only. And I think that's completely fair enough. What struck me there is Rupert is talking about how the mainstream media tend to deal with things that they're afraid of. And actually, even though I'm so disappointed with what GB News has become, it reminds me of my early days helping to launch that channel, where everyone in the establishment and the elite class first decided to ignore GB News. Then it became successful and they decided to start laughing at GB News. Then it becomes much more toxic and they start to try and ban GB News. I think Restore Britain is following a very similar path. And remember, by the next general election, things will have significantly changed. I would argue the Times would be better to look into why Restore Britain is surging. And it is largely because of the demographics of the UK, which are changing so quickly as the European Islamist population simply explodes. I want to give credit today to Newsmax, a US channel, which is very much onto this generational story ignored by the MSM here. Watch.
million Muslims now live in Europe. At the turn of the century, that number was less than 500,000, and more are arriving every day. As the people who lead these countries try to do what Joe Biden tried to do here, and that is fundamentally change the racial and ethnic makeup of a nation and make white Christians a minority in their own country. In England alone, right now, 10 major cities, including London, now have Muslim mayors in a nation that was built around the Church of England. Muslims are now running major cities across the country for the first time in history, and the English want us to believe that this is all normal.
The Muslim will come out and he will stand for truth and he will stand for justice. May Allah give us the ability to stand for the haqq.
So this is not the Middle East. It's not East Minneapolis even. That is England. And when you see images like that, you can't help but ask why anyone, a prime minister or a president or a king, would deliberately try to destroy their own country. Why would you do that? Why is this being done?
Exactly. That is the question. Why is it being done against our wishes? Do the globalists want to cause a civil war here? I think so. And that's why we've had enough. And that's why more and more of us see the weak source establishment approach that Nigel Farage is now pushing as not strong enough. Now, having seen that report, Rupert argued the rapidly changing demographics of our country mean that the Muslim population of our country is set to grow and grow and grow. A process that will only get faster. This is the honest truth no other politician will dare to mention. Demands for political Islam will spread alongside that. We're already seeing that process accelerate. The British people will be further expected to have our way of life changed permanently to tolerate those who would not show us the same respect. I don't want that. Restore Britain does not want that. We have been quite clear that a Restore Britain government would be far more muscular in our approach to Islam. This is a Christian country. Under a Restore Britain government, it would stay that way. Halal slaughter would be banned, along with cousin marriage and the wearing of the burqa niqab. Sharia courts outlawed, with any foreign nationals attempting to promote Islamism removed from our country. Mass dominating Islamic prayer in public spaces will not be tolerated. Islamic call to prayer blaring out across British towns will be banned. Unfettered immigration from Islamic countries will come to an end. Foreign nationals who cannot speak English, refuse to work, claim benefits, live in social housing or hate Britain will also be deported. Under a Restore Britain government, the British state would not bend over backwards to accommodate practices that would have been unwelcome in medieval England. The Islamification of Britain will end. For making these demands, I have received numerous death threats. I want to be really clear, we will not be intimidated. Starmer panders to the Muslim vote, hoping the crocodile will eat him last. Farage has pathetically said if we alienate Islam, we will lose. The Tories had their chance. They accelerated the process. It's all too weak. It's all too late. And the hour is late. Because if we continue on our current trajectory, the size of the Muslim population will reach a point where they will no longer be asking. Just look at Lebanon. I will be hounded for stating these facts, and they are all facts. My response, go to Tower Hamlets, Bradford, Rochdale, Leicester, Blackburn, Birmingham, walk around. You could be living in an Islamic country. It's not even multiculturalism. It's one culture, Islam. And British people in those areas are expected to sit back and accept it or leave. Colonization is the right word. That is not an acceptable state of affairs. What has happened in those towns will happen elsewhere. It is simply a matter of time. We can all already see it developing. It is demographic reality. I'm 68. It will not impact me. I will be long gone. But my one objective with Restore Britain is to leave the country in a better state than the one my generation was gifted. I want my grandchildren and your grandchildren to grow up in a cohesive, prosperous and confident Christian country which treats women with respect. That will require decent British men and women to stand up for our way of life in a far more assertive manner than has happened so far. I am absolutely determined to offer the British people a democratic route out. There is finally a serious political party with the courage to do what needs to be done. Okay, you can just inject that somewhere in me, seriously, in the vein. Just inject that entire post. The issue is, by the way, and I appreciate many of you are Reform supporters and you will feel that Reform and Farage is the best chance at these local elections next month to send the establishment a clear message. And I get that. But I cannot shy away from the fact that Farage has not committed to doing what is necessary. The Spectator, and they're dangerous, by the way, under Michael Gove, calls it the Toryfication of reform. With James Heal reporting from inside the party, within Reform there are mixed feelings about this. There are some who fret about Toryfication. Older hands with long memories recall betrayals of years gone by. One ex-candidate notes the switch in the party's slogan from the bright-eyed change politics for good to the far more conventional family, community, country. Part of the centre-right is now a phrase endlessly trotted out on media rounds by Reform spokesmen. Farage believes the experience brought by the party's new arrivals is necessary to make the party fit for government. Britain's exposure to the bond markets means that Reform must play by the same fiscal rules as everyone else. Everyone knows where Nigel's instinct and mind is on these things, argues one aide. But the risk is that in the quest for power, the party agrees to an agenda that stops it providing the country with the transformation it needs so badly. But Restore supporters are not convinced, with outrage at the number of foreign nationals being put up as Reform candidates next month. Rupert pointed out a Bangladeshi man, Adi Mo Asadzuman, is officially confirmed as Reform's candidate in Portsmouth. Standing foreign nationals in our elections is an insult to the British people. There is finally a party that will ban foreigners from standing and voting. Restore Britain. Reform defends selection of Bangladeshi candidate. And let's be honest, we are screwed as a country given our elite class, and that's why we need something strong to stand up against it. I mean, have you seen Scheming Sturgeon? Now that she's a full-on lesbian, having left politics and destroyed Scotland, she's advocating for more terrorists and more murderers and more rapists to flood our shores.
Hi, I'm Nicola Sturgeon and I am delighted to be joining Safe Passage International as its new chair. We live today in an increasingly unstable world. As a result, more and more people are being forced to flee their own homes in search of safety elsewhere. But instead of working together to find solutions, governments everywhere are responding by pulling up the drawbridge. From my years of experience in politics, I know that doesn't solve the problem. It just forces people to make journeys that are much more dangerous. That's why I believe that the work of Safe Passage International, while difficult, matters today more than ever before. Our legal teams help families separated by war and persecution to be reunited. The expert legal and social support they provide gives children in particular the chance to grow up in safety. And that is what all children deserve. But the hard fact is that the safe routes families depend on are disappearing.
And when it comes to crime, like the looting of London's Clapham, deranged leftist academic Faiza Shaheen went on the British Bashing Corporation to blame climate change and Trump for the looting. Watch.
I'm not surprised that so many young people are feeling so disconnected and in this world in which we live in which they don't see the investment in themselves, in which they do see, the climate crisis in their future. They do see the way in which Trump is behaving and that they are acting out in different ways. You need to understand that and speak to them. And that's how we're going to deal with the root problem.
I really love. Is Trump also to blame for the Manchester airport attack? Is climate change also to blame for the Manchester airport attack? Where a court has heard today that these two scumbag brothers attacked an armed police officer in an airport brawl using a high level of violence. You'll remember Mohammed Fahir Ahmaz and his elder brother, Mohammed Ahmad, who rained repeated blows on PC Zachary Marsden as he tried to arrest Ahmaz in the parking payment area at Terminal 2 in Manchester Airport. Ahmaz also acted in a cowardly manner when he struck unarmed police officer Lydia Ward by punching her in the face, breaking her nose, and also hit PC Ellie Cook, an armed officer, with a flurry of blows. But yes, come to think of it, I'm sure those poor little Islamists who attack female police officers are just influenced by climate change and Donald Trump, and we must feel sorry for them. Hell no. Deport. I want them out. And so does Rupert Lowe. And that's the difference. Now, Leo Kearse. Leo Kearse, let me put you in the very difficult position of asking, why does GB News have such a problem with discussion of Restore Britain or platforming Rupert Lowe? When I was there, Leo, he used to be like the most popular guest. He was on Michelle Dewberry all the time. He would come on my show. He was beloved. And since he's launched Restore Britain as a political party, he hasn't appeared on the channel once.
Well, that might be your answer. I mean, I can't really speculate as to why Rupert Lowe doesn't appear on GB News. I don't think he appears really on any. I can't think of when I've seen him on any terrestrial channel. For all that he's criticised for only existing on Twitter, that seems to be his main outlet. That YouTube and other social media platforms. With regards to GB News, I know that it was set up with this mission to change the conversation in Britain and really affect and possibly turn around and save our country. You've got to understand that, although a lot of people see Nigel Farage and Reform as weak sauce, they're really the most credible opposition. I know things can change in politics. We've seen fringe parties move. I mean, look at the Scottish Nationalist Party in Scotland. They were a laughing stock in the 90s. They were derided. Nobody thought they'd ever get anywhere, and now they're in a position where they've got an effective electoral dictatorship. Nothing can unseat them. No amount of uselessness or profligacy can unseat them. So we could see Restore. We could see Advance. We could see one of these parties. Even the Green Party. The Green Party, used to be an absolute derided fringe outfit, and now look at them. In some polls, they're actually polling highest in the country, which is a much more terrifying prospect, or should be a much more terrifying prospect than any right-wing party getting into power. So there is the possibility in the years until the next election that Restore could. The window could shift and more people could come under Restore's umbrella. And I think Restore speak a lot of sense. They say a lot of things that I agree with. I think sometimes their manner can be a bit maybe it's not the most persuasive. It's more blunt and direct. But that's got a charm all of its own. Who knows what's going to happen?
But isn't the problem it's chicken or egg, right? Like, if all of the mainstream media continue to ban Rupert when they didn't previously, then of course it's going to be more difficult for him. And for me, it's like, what are you afraid of? And I think I know the answer to that. If GB News viewers, many of whom are older and who are not in the independent space, although I would say a lot are, I know a lot of people now in their 70s and 80s who say, Dan, I used to watch you on GB News and I watch you now on YouTube. So I think things are changing in the independent media space because YouTube is now the #1 broadcaster in the country, even bigger than the British Broadcasting Corporation, which is very good news. But Leo, you know full well that there will be a group of people who don't access information out of the mainstream media. And if those people are simply not allowed to know that Restore Britain exists, then that is a good thing for Nigel Farage and Reform UK.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any party that's in power, you could see the Tories try and do it to Farage, try and do it to Reform. You could see it happening during Brexit. You can see, oxygen being starved to anybody who threatens the status quo, the two-party system. So yeah, I mean, that's just the game you've got to play.
Okay, what about Cerulean Sword, who has just posted this super chat to you, Leo, saying, I appreciate that Leo is in a difficult position here. However, Restore are no longer a fringe party. Having polled at 10%, for example, basically unprompted, there is no excuse for GB News. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my call. If it was my call, you know, I'd have them all in there. I'd have the Raving Monster Looney Party on as well. I mean, I think Restore is interesting to watch, and it's a real shame. It's a real shame. I think the Rupert isn't still in Reform, and Ben Habib isn't still in Reform, because I think they brought a lot of talent to the party. But at the same time, Farage, I believe, knows what he's doing. You know, he's in the unenviable position of actually having to be electable. He's not just, you know, mouthing off and you know, making headlines. He's actually carrying that porcelain vase across the slippery floor to the next election. And you've got to, I think, when you're building a political movement like this, you've got to pull the rope without breaking it. And while Restore or Advance or whoever can you know, run off and say whatever they want, Farage has got to appeal to a majority of voters. He's got to actually win the election. He can't get 10%. 10% would be a disaster for Reform. I mean, hey, it's great for Restore. Well done getting 10% straight out of the bat. But, you know, is that sustainable? Is that gonna be carried? It takes a long time to build electability in British politics, and Farage has been building it for decades.
And does that mean, Leo, in your view then, that there does have to be this capitulation to Islam?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, officially, only 6% of the UK is Muslim. And we know that they tend to be concentrated in certain parts of the UK, mainly called England. And we know that, you know, they tend to elect, when they've got the numbers, they tend to elect their own candidates. I don't know if the situation is as bleak, if the sort of rapid acceleration in the numbers of Muslims in the UK is going to continue. Because for all that, you know, we can say, oh, but there's so many ordinary decent Muslims, blah, blah, blah. I mean, where are the ordinary decent Muslims in Afghanistan? Where are the ordinary decent Muslims in Iran who are, you know, somehow forming a constraint to the excesses of radical Islam? I'd feel more reassured about the growth of Islam in the UK if I could look at some Muslim countries and be like, hey, that seems like I'd like to live there. That seems like a chilled out place with British values. They don't seem to be there. So I don't think the Muslim vote is a viable focus for any mainstream political party anymore. I think, you know, in 2019 we saw the Muslim vote replace the sort of white working class vote for Labour in the northern towns, and you know, we could see that this is why Labour turned a blind eye to the horrors that were going on with the grooming gangs. They didn't want to upset anything with that community. And in 2019, 85% of Muslims in Britain voted for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. It was an incredible, you know, block vote. Now they've got the numbers to vote for their own candidates. They're voting for their own candidates. Because they've got their own candidates, I think, you know, other parties can just ignore them. And I think the only reason we're seeing any serious action being taken against grooming gangs now is because they've stopped voting Labour. If they were still voting Labour, Labour would still be kissing their bums and saying, you know, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. Just give us those grubby little votes, because, you know, at the end of the day, that's really what politicians care about. But for most parties, I don't think it's a viable thing to go for anymore, and I don't think it's a block that could swing elections for parties at the moment.
I just think the jury is so out about what state this country is going to be in, Leo, by the time of the next election. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this today, but it's from the IMF. And I mean, it suggests the crash is well and truly on the way. We face the biggest economic shock in the G7 in a triple blow for Rachel from accounts. The IMF has cut the UK's growth forecast for this year and next, warned of the highest inflation in the G7, and predicted one of the smallest increases in living standards in the world. I mean, we cannot afford to continue on this path. A crash is coming. And I think what that is going to do, Leo, is drive people to the real left with the Tit Whisperer and the Islamo-trans Greens, and the real right with Rupert Lowe, because, again, Nigel Farage has said, oh, we're keeping the triple lock, we're keeping the Bank of England, we're keeping all of the sort of deep state functions that have got us into this state. So I don't know. I just think there is such a path before the next election. And I think people are going to be looking for something more extreme to save this country. And by extreme, I know other people say that in a bad way. But if you're talking about extreme from Rupert Lowe on the right, I absolutely celebrate that. If you're talking about extreme from the tip whisperer on the left, I'm out of here. We'd be fucked.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how, even Rupert Lowe himself describes Restore's policies as radical change. Whereas I think that's, when I hear the word radical, I think of blue-haired Marxists. That's not what Restore are about. That's not what the writer are about at all. The writer about restoring Britain to when it was great. And I think, a financial crash, although it might be unpleasant, I think there's no avoiding that. It could actually be what this country needs to shake it out of its torpor. At the moment, we're spending so much money on welfare, and it's essentially just to sort of buy votes and keep communities happy. There's certain demographics that just get so much from the taxpayer. There's more spent on welfare now than is raised from income tax, which is that's a terrifying place for a country to be in. When there are more people sucking on the teat of the government than actually contributing to the government. And that picture of Rachel Reeves crying, man, that's how I cry when I fill in my tax return, knowing that all my money is getting taken off me to be given to Somalians coming across to assault children, drag children off swings in playgrounds. It's horrific. I think a shock like that, something like that would really wake up the masses to the direction of travel in this country. And, then we'd have somebody like Margaret Thatcher or Javier Milei come in and actually reset the country and put in place the policies and the strategy to make this country great again.
And I know lots of people are turning on Trump, given you've mentioned that phrase. I'm not one of them, Leo. And it's interesting for me to see him using Truth Social today to needle Slippery Starmer and specifically Mad Miliband over the fact that he is bankrupting us because of his totally deranged energy policy. I just want to show you this Truth Social from Trump. I don't think it's got enough attention because, of course, the mainstream media are only interested, by the way, Leo, when Trump's posting a silly AI image of himself as Jesus. When he's actually talking about our energy policy, they have no fucking interest. But anyway, this is what he said. Europe is desperate for energy, and yet the United Kingdom refuses to open North Sea oil, one of the greatest fields in the world. Tragic. Aberdeen should be booming. Norway sells its North Sea oil to the UK at double the price. They are making a fortune. UK, which is better situated on the North Sea for purposes of energy than Norway, should drill, baby, drill. It's absolutely crazy that they don't, and no more windmills. President DJT. A damning indictment, Leo, of our energy policy, which is driving us to really dire places economically, but also in terms of our security. We have no energy security.
Yep, absolutely. For all that people in Labour say, oh, but we buy energy on the market. So if we drill, it won't make any difference to the price that we pay. It would mean that we actually had a secure source of fossil fuels. So if war breaks out, if any waterways are blocked, such as the Strait of Hormuz, then we can still access oil and gas that we need to run our power stations and, fill in the gaps when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining, which, sometimes the sun doesn't shine in Britain. I don't know if anybody's noticed. And even from an ecological point of view, closing the North Sea oil and gas doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because all it means is we have to bring our oil and gas from places like Qatar. So you think bringing gas on a boat from Qatar or bringing oil on a boat from Saudi Arabia is somehow more environmentally friendly than just piping it on shore to Aberdeen? That's an absolute nonsense. The boats can crash, they can sink, they can cause oil spills. Also, I don't think Saudi Arabia has got the same environmental standards as Scottish or British oil producers, and the damage it's doing to our economy, Scotland's economy in particular, which desperately needs some actual business, that isn't just leeching off Westminster's funds. there's companies there like Harbour Energy, absolutely fantastic oil exploration and production company. They made $1 billion profit last year. Incredibly successful company, really good at what they do. They exploit old end-of-life oil fields and get the last bits out, which is really, a kind of environmentally friendly thing to do. But they're subject to really punitive windfall taxes, thanks to Labour and thanks to the Tories. I think it's around 78%. So once you
and don't forget this woman, Leo. Please don't forget this woman, the newfound lesbian who has posted this today. I don't know if you saw it. First day of the rest of my life, off duty. And she's backing the refugees. She's done a huge amount of damage too. We can never forget what that woman, what scheming Sturgeon has done to Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. But once you add on all these windfall taxes that these companies have to pay, Harbour Energy had to pay over 100% tax last year. So that $1 billion profit ended up being a loss, and they had to lay off 250 people. And that's a fantastic British business that's being starved, not through anything to do with the economy, anything to do with anything except bad government policy and horrendous taxes. And yeah, I mean, as if Sturgeon would do any better. I mean, Sturgeon and the SNP are diametrically opposed to any business or any oil and gas in Scotland, even though it'd be the best thing for Britain, not just in terms of our economy. It'd be the best thing for Britain environmentally as well, because we can just get that oil and gas onshore ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you for all of your super chats, by the way. I love them. I always love reading them. So if you do want me to take note of something during the live show, do super chat me. Meow Moog, I think this is a fair point. Honestly, I do. And I say this as someone who quite clearly is advocating at the moment for Restore Britain. But she says, hold your nose and vote Reform in May to keep the insane Greens and Labour Conservative butt cheeks out. Then just wait for Restore in the general election. Got to be realistic. Absolutely. And we'll speak much more about voting in the weeks to come. But I'm definitely a tactical guy. So I'm not saying, by the way, that it doesn't make sense at this point to vote for Reform UK, depending on where you are and what your local situation is. But if you're in Great Yarmouth, for example, then I would absolutely advocate for you voting Great Yarmouth first, Rupert Lowe's hyper-local party. There's trouble for GB News over Eamonn Holmes' stroke. And this is obviously a difficult thing to talk about because first and foremost, everyone wants Eamonn Holmes to recover. He was found at home, collapsed, having suffered a very serious stroke. My insiders at GB News say that he is expected to be off air until September at the earliest, which is a sign of just how bad things are and how difficult this recovery will be. Some at the channel predict he will never return to air. That's despite the chief executive, Angelo Frangopoulos, releasing a statement saying that the broadcaster will stand by their man. And that statement was very important because there were lots of people close to Eamonn who were worried that Angelo and the channel management were going to do the same thing that happened after Mark Steyn had his 2 near fatal heart attacks, which was use that as an opportunity to get rid. But the other problem for GB News is that there is increasing talk in the industry that they did not illustrate enough duty of care to Eamonn Holmes on a couple of fronts. Firstly, suggestions that the other breakfast presenter, Stephen Dixon, a guy who has wanted Eamonn Holmes' job for a very, very long time, was leaking stories to the Daily Mail. That's something that Eamonn himself had discussed with me and I know was causing him a huge amount of stress. But secondly, the fact that there were a number of on-air incidents suggesting that Eamonn was not well at all. Watch.
The most bombers, the most strikes.
Well, this comes as the Royal Navy destroyer HMS Dragon finally left port.
Well, the first thing to say is some of that reporting is just not true. It's right to say the NHS app was always going to be separate to the gov.uk app. That's a decision that we took.
Nationalisation needs to come in.
Oh my gosh.
OK, forget it. Fine. Just carry on.
Now, after that happened, Mike Graham, the highly respected independent broadcaster, came on Outspoken and advocated for GB News to take a more responsible approach. Watch.
This is where media companies need to show some, compassion. And, Eamonn has done great things for them, as he has in his whole career, and they should look after him. What they shouldn't do is put him through this kind of humiliation, because I blame them for this, right? It's not his fault. If he's suffering with his health, which we know he is, and if he's struggling to wake up in the morning and do the show, which looks like is also the case, then GB News have, I think, a responsibility to look after him and to do the right thing and to say to him in the nicest possible way, Eamonn, why don't you take a step back? We love you on the channel, rather like they did
with Alistair Stewart.
With Alistair Stewart, yeah, when he obviously was diagnosed with dementia. That's what a responsible broadcaster would do. I just think they're not doing that.
Well, indeed. But I can speak from very personal experience and say the way that GB News manages its talent at very difficult moments is anything other than responsible. Mark Stein had this to say. This is the only interview he has given since his defenestration from the channel. It's worth listening to. Watch.
There's two things that I absolutely loathe about that time. Is that Flopodopoulos, or whatever he's called, the CEO, had arranged. He called the hospital, gift shop in the lobby to send up a box of chocolates to me with this rather heartfelt message. So the guys from the gift shop assumed that Flopodopoulos and I were lovers. And so they read it out in this simperingly romantic. This guy he's determined to kill the show and as a bonus kill me, and they read it out as if it's a love letter, and they're doing all this romantic pouting at me from the end of the bed. And then the other thing was that Nigel Farage wanted a medical statement from me that he could read out on his show. And I said, I don't do that. I said, my idea of a medical statement is from King George V. The king's life is drawing peacefully to a close. That's all the medical detail I want. So I didn't want to do that.
There is another issue, of course, in terms of the Eamonn situation, and it involves his now estranged ex-wife, Ruth Langsford, the ITV presenter, who is struggling with secret anguish as a result of his stroke. The Sun reporting that Ruth is feeling pretty bereft and helpless. Her instincts are to run to his bedside or call him on the phone, but then she's reminded she can't do that. He has Katy, that's his new younger blonde girlfriend now, who has been stuck by his bedside and praying for his recovery. Ruth has been updated on Eamonn's condition by their son Jack, who is said to have a strained relationship with his dad following his split with his mum. The source continued, it's been very sad for Ruth, almost like mourning the split all over again. She's been really angry and hurt by Eamonn, but this week things changed, and with him being so ill, she parked those negative feelings, and her instincts are to want to help him get better. She's having to forcibly stand back and do nothing, which has been really against what she wants to do. Ruth is naturally a very caring and nurturing person, so she's very out of sorts with this news. She's trying to put her energy into her son and just trying to relax and calm herself down. She's trying to push on and keep going, as she knows she must stay positive no matter how hard it is in her position as an outsider looking in. And I was interested in that because Jim Davidson, very good friend with Eamonn Holmes, raised, completely unprompted by me, by the way, on Outspoken this week, the prospect that part of Eamonn's health suffering so badly was because things seemed to be unresolved in some way with Ruth and the pressure of having this much younger woman. Jim's words, not mine. Watch. So how was he doing, Jim? Do you know?
No, I didn't get a response. I got a couple of little ticks. That was a joke before. But I got a couple of blue ticks, but I don't know.
I mean, because I'm told...
He's had all the problems. Has he gotten over Ruth? Okay, is it? Do you know when you trust me? When you're an old man in love with a younger woman, it's difficult. It plays on your mind all the time. Does she love me? Does she want me? Why? When you put your head on the pillow, it's all that goes through your mind. It can, love can be a killer, can't it? And insecurity even worse.
And there is a huge concern across the industry, an outpouring of love for Eamonn Holmes, including this from GB News regular Steve Miller.
Eamonn Holmes is one of the nicest, most decent, straight-talking, what you see is what you get TV presenters that you'll ever meet. Trust me. He's interviewed me many times. When I used to go on This Morning quite often, Eamonn would be the one, and with Ruth, of course, the ones that would interview me. And he was the one that talked to the guests. He is the one that says it straight. He is the one that is not the kind of say one thing, do another. And I'm just sending through the screen for Eamonn Holmes loads of good wishes for a quick recovery. And I don't know, you probably won't see this, Eamonn, but if you do, hurry up and get well. Otherwise, I'll be in that hospital giving you a snog. That should do it. Love you lots.
Okay, Leo Kearse, you're obviously someone who's worked with Eamonn Holmes for a number of years. How is he? What do you make of all of this? Is this GB News' fault? Is this to do with his marriage with Ruth Langsford? What's your take on it all?
I haven't worked with Eamonn for ages. I did the breakfast show a couple of times, but mornings aren't my forte. Like headliners is my sort of time. 11 p.m. that'll do me. But for these accusations of GB News treating Eamonn badly, man, they gave him a job. They gave him a job to enable him to earn good money at a time when he needed a job. I think that's looking after him. That's man. I wish I had somebody that treated me that badly. You know what I mean? If anybody out there wants to pay me loads of money to do the breakfast show, that would that'd do me. I'll even fall off the chair a few times. And Eamonn Holmes, I know that he's not in the best of health. He's had a rough few years. This is why you got to get down the gym. You got to do squats. You got to do deadlifts. You got to do maybe not deadlifts, but you got to do those compound exercises. Keep your frame strong. But my experience of GB News, I know there's some bitter ex GB News people out there.
Who on earth could you be talking about, Leo? I don't know what you mean.
Stein.
Stop speaking about Liam Halligan and Dominic Frisby like that, you naughty man.
I'm talking about the other ones, Dan. No. But there's people out there who have a bit of beef and want to stick the knife into GB News. My own personal experience working for GB News, I've got no real incentive to be nice about GB News. I'm not doing headliners anymore or anything. So this is genuine. This is honest. When I was under investigation, there was a furore in the media. Hope not hate were coming for me. They had the perfect opportunity to get rid of me and replace me with somebody else. And I was on a contract that they paid too much for me because there was a bit of a bidding war at the time when I signed the contract, which they might have later regretted. So this would have been the perfect time to get rid of me and save themselves a bunch of money. And they didn't. They stood by me and they went through everything very professionally and they saw everything quite objectively. And the way they treated me, I thought was very human and sort of unnecessarily kind, given the circumstances, which they could have exploited to just save some money in the accountant's book. So from my personal experience, they treat staff very well, very professionally, and I'd love to present that breakfast show. I'd love to be treated that badly.
Well, after that ringing endorsement, Leo, you may well get the phone call. Breaking today, Katy Perry assaulted a girl and she didn't like it. That is at least the claim from the famous Australian lesbian actress Ruby Rose, star of the prison drama Orange is the New Black, who has accused Justin Trudeau's new girlfriend publicly of sexual assault, having been infuriated watching Perry and the former Canadian Prime Minister sort of flaunt their love during Justin Bieber's set at Coachella. Now, I have to just pause for a moment and say everything I'm saying feels completely bizarre to me. Like, that's the fucking guy who destroyed Canada, dressing like a teenage boy at Coachella with Katy Perry. And now this actress is making this claim against Katy Perry as a result. The story is nuts. The story is completely mad. The world has gone a little bit mad. But sometimes can we just enjoy the totally bizarre nature of the crossover between politics and show business? Because this story has it all. So here's how the news was revealed. Ruby Rose accuses Katy Perry of sexually assaulting her around 20 years ago, alleging Perry rubbed her disgusting vagina on her face, causing Rose to vomit. She added that she has filed a police report regarding the incident. So I'll show you, this was like a conversation that played out in public on social media. So Ruby Rose sent this post saying she kissed a girl and you didn't like it. No, sorry, that was the member of the public, Death Heart, said she kissed a girl and you didn't like it. Ruby Rose replies to that pun, she didn't kiss me. She saw me resting on my best friend's lap to avoid her and bent down, pulled her underwear to the side and rubbed her disgusting vagina on my face until my eyes snapped open and I projectile vomited on her. Death Hearts replied, so you have the balls to make accusations, but not enough of them to actually file a report. If you did, you could stop others from potentially being victimized by her as well. That is, if it even actually happened in the first place. And Ruby Rose, not one to back down from a fight, then added, just left the police station. It is believed that this alleged assault took place in Australia, in Melbourne, and that is where Ruby Rose made the police complaint. Well, within hours, Justin Trudeau's lover, Katy Perry, had vigorously denied what her reps called false and dangerous lies, releasing a statement to Variety magazine that read, the allegations being circulated on social media by Ruby Rose about Katy Perry are not only categorically false, they are dangerous, reckless lies. Ms. Rose has a well-documented history of making serious public allegations on social media against various individuals, claims that have repeatedly been denied by those named. Rose says that the incident occurred when she was in her 20s. And she said the reason that she didn't report her was because, and these are her words, I told her the story publicly, but changed it to be a funny little drunk story because I didn't know how to handle it. Later, she, referring to Perry, agreed to help me get my US visa. So I kept it a secret, but I did tell you all that she wasn't a good person. I was only in my early 20s. I'm now 40. It has taken almost 2 decades to say this publicly, though I am so grateful to have made it long enough to find my voice. It just shows how much of an impact trauma and sexual assaults take. Thank you for seeing me. You don't need people to believe you. You just need to get it out of your poor body before it gives you cancer. Perry, of course, attended Coachella with Trudeau. The duo were in attendance for Justin Bieber's headlining set, with Perry posting a video on social media in real time with her reaction to Bieber, looking up YouTube videos on stage and singing along to them. She quipped, "Thank God he has premium. I don't want to see no ads." Complex's social media graphic depicting this quote is what prompted Rose's allegation. The Australian journalist Peter Ford, looking at this, added, why do perfectly intelligent people like Ruby Rose and Rebel Wilson think they are exempt from defamation laws because they vent on their own social media accounts? Is it simply an ego or indicative of that generation? And I found this one very strange because at around the time that Ruby Rose is making these allegations, I actually knew Katy Perry. in my old life, my former life. And I thought she was absolutely lovely. So this one surprised me, Leo Kearse. And I almost don't know what to say apart from that social media is not the place to make these sorts of allegations. The police station is the place to make these sorts of allegations. I hate trial by social media. And I understand that's now what Katy Perry is going through, but you can't ignore a story like this.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, she says, I told it as a little funny drunk story for years, and it's like, yeah, that's because it's a little funny drunk story. You know, you all got drunk. You're obviously out of your face because you projectile vomited as soon as you saw Katy Perry's vagina, and Katy Perry was obviously drunk because she pulled her pants to one side, allegedly, and said, "Kiss me on the lips." So we know that everybody was absolutely plastered. And this is what people do when they're young and they're plastered. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to go to jail now because I teabagged my mate when I was 15? You know what I mean? This is insane. This is just what people do when they're having a few drinks. Maybe not every time you have a few drinks. You know, I've been out for some Sunday roasts where we don't teabag each other. But you know, this is it feels like it's being blown out of all proportion. And you know, for the Me Too stuff, yeah, I had some sympathy for the women if it was, you know, real monster guys going after women, you know, hurting them or whatever. But you know, a lot of the accusations, just, you know, I'm just like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? Even the Harvey Weinstein stuff, it's like you got a Hollywood career from touching his wanger. Like, you know, there's people touching wangers for 20 quid. And you're complaining you got an Oscar? I mean, that's one of the best.
Yeah, although it's usually the ones
one of
that
the best
didn't
transactions.
get the Oscar that complain. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. It's like when the casting couch went wrong. They did it and they didn't get the Oscar. Trust me, I know the ones who got the Oscar. And they're some of the most famous women in Hollywood, Leo. And they don't complain about their little, how do you put it? Experiences with Harvey Weinstein, because they got the Oscar. That's how, do you see what I mean? It's the ones that didn't get the Oscar. It's the ones who didn't get the career.
Yeah, but that's how Hollywood works, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. That's why there's even a phrase, the casting couch. That phrase exists for a reason, because there's a casting couch. So, you know, if you want to go into a business where you don't have to do something like that, you don't have to touch Harvey Weinstein's wanger, then go and become a brain surgeon. Nobody's having to touch anybody's wanger to do brain surgery, because you've got to be the absolute best at brain surgery. The trouble with acting is anybody can do it. Like I acted, I played Mick Fleetwood in an ITV drama, and it was so easy. It was the easiest job. All I had to do was dress up like Mick Fleetwood, which somebody else did for me, and then pretend I was Mick Fleetwood and say some words that somebody else had written. No wonder everybody wants to do it. You get loads of money for doing that. It's a nonsense. The real victim in all of this is me, because I never got invited to Harvey Weinstein's hotel room to get that boost in my show business career. I'd have been in that hotel room in a second. You know what I mean? I've got to make it on merit, and I think we all know that's more difficult.
Oh God. Justin Trudeau, Katy Perry. It's very bizarre. Sword has just sent in this super chat saying, when I see Justin Trudeau with Katy Perry, I need to remind myself I'm not having a stroke. Me too. I'm still not over it. It's like, how do you go from Russell Brand to Justin Trudeau? Truly weird. Breaking today, Australians in uproar over the most revolting fake royal tour the world has ever seen. Aussie politicians hitting out at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle for the cost of this fake tour. Meanwhile, real moral outrage over the fact that young Australian children suffering from terminal illnesses in some cases have been used to try and rehabilitate not themselves, but the reputation of the dastardly Sussexes. Let me tell you though, Aussies take no bullshit, and it's not working. One woman who was on board Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's Qantas flight told the MSM of the Duchess, I don't like her at all. Don't come to Australia. You don't belong here. We don't want you here. And for very good reason, because I've got to give credit to Danica Di Giorgio of Sky News Australia, who revealed that on the last tour there, Meghan Markle had asked for an appearance fee to attend a veterans event. That, by the way, is when she was still a member of the British royal family, but this news has just emerged. Watch.
Well, Australian taxpayers are partially paying for Mr. and Mrs. Grifter's phony royal tour down under. Yes, Meghan Markle and her spare handbag Harry are on their way to Australia for the latest instalment of the Sussex's soap opera, months, of course, after that fake visit to the Middle East. Now, why are they coming, you might ask? Well, that is a great question. I don't know why they're even bothering, because the last time they came in 2018, Meghan had that dreadful sourpuss face on the whole time, and then claimed the Australia tour was the catalyst for her and the spare to leave the royal family. She hated every second, apparently, and found the trip, quote, pointless. And have a look at this. A former politician here in Sydney has just revealed that when Harry toured an upgraded war memorial on that trip, there were rumours that she had asked if she would be getting an appearance fee. That's according to David Elliott. So a veteran's wife asking for an appearance fee?
It's sick. But it's absolutely how this woman behaves. Now, Danica insisted Australians are not going to be happily welcoming either Meghan or her husband because they still feel betrayed, not just by that tour to Australia, but by their behaviour since Megxit.
Now, the Duke and Duchess of Privacy are not going to get a welcome reception here this week after they disrespected this country, disrespected the Queen and the entire royal family. We don't want you here, Meghan, and we don't want you here, Harry, because Australia welcomed the newly married Duke and Duchess with open arms 8 years ago. And you'll recall this was the trip that they announced they were pregnant with their first child. Thousands lined the streets to greet them. They were treated like rock stars. We adored them. And they shoved it back in our faces because they hated the trip and then left the royal family. So don't expect a welcome reception this week. As I said, this is another phony royal tour. And have a look at this. We have to fund it. Yes, us hard-working taxpayers have to pay for them to have police, even though this is a private tour. You've got to be kidding me.
It's gross. It's totally gross. So on arrival in Australia, Prince Harry was all fake smiles, but Meghan Markle said nothing to 9 News, and I know why. Watch.
Oh, the cyclists. You enjoying being in Australia?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's great to be back.
Anything to say to the Australian public?
Thanks for having us back.
But Meghan wasn't enjoying it. My source, who works at Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, said that before she entered the area with the children, Meghan Markle had said just 4 words. Let's make this quick. What a humanitarian she is. Not. But the thing is, Australians already have the measure of this woman. Australians know what Meghan Markle is about. Look at this.
What are your thoughts on Harry and Meghan coming to Australia?
They're coming to Australia? Are they?
Yeah, I don't care.
Are they here?
I don't know they were. I've got no idea they're coming. Nor do I care.
Would you pay $3,000 to see Meghan on Coogee Beach?
No, I wouldn't.
I'd rather put that in my face.
No.
No. What's she going to talk about?
Well, I mean, if she thinks that that's what she's worth, good on her.
Do you like the Royals?
Yeah, they're all right.
Oh, they don't bother me. We don't know much about them, to be honest, but they're cool. I went to Buckingham Palace.
And do you have a message for them?
Good stuff, guys. Good to have you here. Great to have you here.
Good luck getting here. Hopefully your flight doesn't get cancelled.
Welcome. Hope you like Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you wanted to keep everything on the down low and private to yourselves, but you're doing the opposite. So, interesting.
Of course, you could have just flown into Australia like Kevin Costner apparently did this week, with no drama whatsoever, no big public issues. But instead, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decided to pick a fight with the Australian media in regards to their security arrangements. So bear alone, posting, so wait, Their spokesman is accusing Australian media of breaking an embargo. But why did this clown give details about private citizens? That's his fault. And according to Taz, added, wait a minute, Harry and Meghan give their itinerary to the media, then complain the media have endangered them by revealing the details of said itinerary. These two are a constant drama. We know you deliberately leaked your operational planning notes, so pipe down. Watch the report.
There are concerns Harry and Meghan's security may have been compromised ahead of their visit here to Melbourne. As Penelope Leash reports, the Sussexes are facing backlash over the cost of their trip to taxpayers.
In 2018, these then working royals were heartily embraced, crowds swamping newly married Prince Harry and Meghan in Melbourne and delighting them on the sand in Sydney. But 7.5 years later, with an exit from the royal family... Would you go and try and see them anywhere?
No, only to boo.
I wouldn't go and see them, no. I think they've let William down.
What isn't down is the price of tickets to see the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Later this week, Harry will speak at a mental health event in Melbourne and Meghan will headline a women's retreat in Sydney.
I think the royal brand's a bit overrated.
It's $1,000 to go and see Harry speak. What do you think of that?
I think it's outrageous.
The couple are expected to make charity visits too, but there are concerns security has been compromised after some media outlets published details of their plans.
And this is where the security services are in a very difficult position. Nobody wants anything bad to happen to Harry and Meghan on Australian soil. That would be catastrophic.
While the couple's team have maintained this trip is being privately funded, taxpayers will foot some of the bill. In Sydney, police will be running an operation to ensure public safety, while here in Melbourne, officers will be deployed if needed.
Victoria Police has the ability to charge for these sorts of things.
In no way should Victoria Police be providing private security for those who are coming here as private citizens.
An online petition demanding no public resources go to the visit has already attracted more than 45,000 signatures.
But Australian taxpayer money is being used for this. And we are told that there might be an appearance on Bondi Beach to try and cash in on the anniversary of that terror attack, which is particularly sick given we know that Meghan and Harry went to terrorist supporting organisations during their time in the Middle East. But Lauren the Insider believes that all of this is being supported by the British royal family as part of Operation Thaw. That is this plan to bring Prince Harry and Meghan Markle back to the United Kingdom. And certainly some of the mainstream media reporting from the Royal Rota suggested that was a possibility. Like this from The Sun, how Prince Harry and Meghan's Australia tour could pave the way for a return to Britain amid security rout. No thanks. But Matt Wilkinson, the royal editor, part of the Royal Writer, writes, Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia this week is set to be the blueprint for a return trip to Britain. Insiders say the trip to Oz, where the King is head of state and royal news makes headlines, will be a dummy run and testing ground for a potential joint tour of the UK. Meghan has not set foot in Britain since she attended the late Queen's funeral nearly 4 years ago, while Harry has said he will not return with his family until they get 24-hour taxpayer-funded armed security. The Sussexes are waiting for an outcome of a security review which could see the Met Police forced to provide armed guards. If the couple succeed, Meghan could return this summer with Harry for a 12-month countdown to the Invictus Games or attend the tournament itself in Birmingham in July next year. It is understood that insiders will be closely watching the reaction that the couple receive in Australia from royal fans and even Republicans. A source said it is a significant joint tour and could prove to be a blueprint for future tour types of this together. Well, seriously, I mean, they're utterly crazed. They're utterly crazed if they think that there's going to be any good reaction. Because look at this. Look at this. Here's the real reason why these two have dropped their walkabouts. Because there are apparently protesters going around holding flags saying, abolish the House of Sussex. Britannia Royal posting, we know why they cancelled their walkabouts in Australia. Harry and Meghan are cowards. But as I say, it does look like this is part of a wider plan. Here's Lauren the Insider talking about how they are also using this tour to take from the headlines the astonishing revelation that Dr. Sophie Chandoka of the Centre Bali charity is going ahead with an audacious plan to sue Prince Harry. Watch.
There is a go-to playbook move in PR.
And when you are trying to deflect from negative coverage, when you are trying to shame people into not asking questions, you hide behind philanthropy. You hide behind sick children. We saw Prince Harry do this in September last year when he came back, and that was the real start of the optics. Get Harry back into the UK. Let's make everyone forget all the horrible things Harry and Meghan have done. And when he landed, he went to the Well Child event, and we all saw what happened. He was joking around, playing with a very poorly child, and we are immediately shamed then.
Yes, that may be true, because of course this visit to the hospital did get attention, but I would argue for all of the wrong reasons. I mean, could you imagine any other member of the British royal family hustling to bring a whole load of young children going through the most terrible health battles, bringing them down from their hospital rooms into the foyer for some type of public display? It genuinely revolted me. Watch.
Nice to be back. Thank you.
We gotta move in a little
Leo Kearse, have you ever seen anything darker than that? Royal tours in the past, if they involve a hospital, will see the particular member of the royal family going to the hospital bedside of the patients involved, especially if it's at a children's hospital. Although I do point out Princess Diana visited children's hospital all the time without cameras whatsoever, because she knew it would be highly inappropriate to put these types of children in front of the cameras. I mean, I think the expression on these kids' faces showed they were not all too enamored about meeting Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But for me, the fact that they decided to usher down these kids into the reception for what was a photo opportunity says so much about them, Leo. Genuinely, I thought it was a new low for the Sussexes, and that's saying something.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, Dan. I mean, this is, especially when you understand the sort of the Machiavellian PR moves behind it, that's so cynical. And to exploit these children like that and force them to meet Harry and Meghan. I mean, haven't these kids suffered enough? It's awful. It's interesting that the trajectory of Harry and Meghan's profile in Australia is the same as it is in the UK. They were welcomed. Everybody thought it was exciting. Here's this glamorous actress from America. She's going to inject a bit of a bit of contemporariness into the royal family. I didn't actually know she was black till she started banging on about it. She kind of looks Italian. I've seen blacker people, to be honest, but it seemed like fun. And then they absolutely ruined it through no fault of their own. And to be charging $1,000 for a ticket to see them speak and to be complaining about a tour. I'm on tour at the moment. I'm on tour in the UK doing stand-up comedy, and my tickets do not cost $1,000, and I'm better at stand-up comedy than Meghan Markle. So yeah, come and see my show. Don't pay $1,000 to go and see them. They're not even real royals. They've left the royal family, and it's fun going on tour, especially to places like Australia. I was over in Australia last year speaking. You know, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't in as nice a class of aircraft, as nice a class of seat as Meghan and Harry were, and I'm 6'6". But Australia is just like the land of sunshine, and the people are so down to earth, and I think that's why they give no measure to Harry and Meghan. They don't hold their tongues. They'll say it like it is. So it's nice to see them getting that reception from Australians who are just sick of them as well.
Yeah, because everything is so confused with Harry. There's a fascinating moment. So they went to the hospital, right? And then Meghan goes off to a refuge of some form where she's sort of got her apron on and pretending to get her hands dirty in the kitchen. Then they come back together to a museum. And it's here where Harry says the tour is not the royal family, but is part of the royal family. It's very odd, and I just want us to watch this. Listen here.
Experience to make sure that it's
We always say that once one member of the family serves, the whole family serves.
100%.
So the sooner that we can all get that into our minds and accept it, the better. But from a defence standpoint, it's so much a case of the individual serving as treated as a number.
Yeah.
And you kind of see from a defence standpoint that should be the focus.
Yeah.
From a government standpoint, you should be looking after your people.
I mean, what's he talking about, Leo? This is the problem, isn't it? It's like everything he does is so confused. If you wanted to be part of the royal family, then you should have stayed in the royal family, and you could do tours like this properly. Instead, he almost plays, because he's not a smart guy, Leo, we know this, but he tries to play these sort of mental gymnastics, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants all the freedom and the personal glorification of not being in the royal family and being able to talk about the royal family, but he also wants to have all the kudos and you know, carry that weight of being a royal. It's like, pick one. And you know, to be honest, like, one, to have your cake and eat it. I hope Meghan's not making that cake. I watched her Netflix cooking show, and I mean, what did she do? What did she do? All she did was get like a tub of hummus from the supermarket and sprinkle some flowers around it. It was like something I'd do with my 3-year-old daughter. You know, it wasn't cooking. It's like, oh, we chopped some carrots into sticks. Oh, well done, Meghan. You know what I mean? Here's a sticker for you. Like, it was a joke. Everything they do is an absolute joke and doomed to failure. And I think, you know, if you're somebody like Harry, with the intelligence of Harry, born into the royal family, you stay in that royal family. That is the best job you're going to get. You know, you're not going to make it in the wide world when you're up against other people who have got talent, who can cook, who are smart, who aren't, you know, doing these clunky Machiavellian ham-fisted PR moves, you know, trying to get themselves photographed hugging a sick child while then getting caught on tape saying, you know, okay, we'll make this quick. I mean, this is pretty grim stuff for them to be doing, when it's something that, you know, if it was done well, it could be a celebration, it could be a rehabilitation of their image.
Very true. Leo, look, stick around, because we've got quite a controversial Greatest Britain coming up. I'm going to get you to reveal that one, so don't go anywhere. But first, lots of comments coming in, because of course there is this battle in British politics between Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party and Rupert Lowe and his Restore Britain party. So Ars Vivak says, Farage, you should be worried. We should teach Farage a lesson. By the way, who's paying for his private flight? Blurred Lines 2013 says Nigel shouldn't have dumped Rupert and Ben. Nigel will be shit scared. He thought he was going to be the next Prime Minister, but his ego got the better of him, and he allowed Zia Yusuf to refer Rupert to the police. And the thing is, that was the moment for me. It was like, that was the red line moment. I think for many others it was too. Linda Heath says people want more than Farage. Rupert is the answer. Unless these two parties get it together, we will be green. Barbara Stubbing speaks about the ban from Rupert appearing on GB News and says, this is wrong. We should be able to hear what Rupert has to say. Why are the media against him or the party? I think Reform is the party to vote for, but I also admire Rupert. In terms of Scotland, Stephen Calderwold says, shut up, Sturgeon. In Scotland, we've had enough of your woke party. Vote Restore. Low for PM. And Enya in the World says, I and many others have unsubscribed to GB News. Propaganda, Labour, Greens, Tories and Reform all have blood on their hands voting for Restore Britain. Okay, so let's take a look at the nominations for today's Worst Britain in the World. Our union jackass Ed Miliband has been nominated by Leo Kearse for his ridiculous energy policy that means solar might overwhelm the grid. And by the way, Donald Trump coming for him today, which has been beautiful to see. He's also nominated Alfonso Rudicabana for letting his son hoard knives and make poison. Of course, Axel Rudicabana responsible for the death of those 3 young girls at the Taylor Swift dance class in Southport. And I nominated Prince Harry for all of the reasons we have just seen on that Australian tour. Okay, Prince Harry only getting 15% of your vote today. Damn it, I'm in last place, which means Leo's won. And it was close. It was actually close between his two. Ed Miliband with 39% of the vote. But today's union jackass, the worst Britain in the world today, Alfonso Rudicabana, who I absolutely think should be back on a plane to Rwanda unless he is locked up here, Leo. I mean, it's truly sickening. But look, I'm going to let you reveal today's greatest Britain. I'm keeping my mouth shut for now.
Who was it? I've forgotten who it was. Who did I say?
Up.
Shut up. Oh, it's Zach Polanski's mum.
But we don't even know. We don't even know. Can I just say we don't even know for sure yet, Leo, that this woman in the picture is definitely Zach Polanski's mum. Can we just stress that? There's a lot of rumors going around at the moment, Leo.
But all the logic checks out. We know that Zach Polanski has got an obsession with making breasts bigger. It's possibly the only part of his platform that I agree with. So, you know, he likes to hypnotize women into making their breasts bigger. It's a shame he can't hypnotize his teeth into being better. But this clearly shows where he got this obsession with. I mean, to see this woman who has been alleged to be his mother, I believe it's in some newspapers now.
Well, the newspapers have probably done a deal not to release it. That's what I'm told.
Really?
That there's one of those dirty deals has been done.
That's interesting. But why would they have the...
Well, I guess she might claim that she is a private citizen and that she's not in politics. So her career is not in the public interest. That would be her argument.
But Zach Polanski, I mean, he clearly, I mean, if a politician is, you know, obviously people can't choose their family, they can't choose their parents, but, you know, for your mum to be what people refer to as a sex worker, as if it's real work. I mean, this sort of can show where the sort of degeneracy of a politician can come from. I mean, I'd prefer. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I'm pretty sure Rupert Lowe's mum wasn't selling blowies under Great Yarmouth Pier for 25 quid. You know, there's a certain level of background that just gives you more confidence in a political leader. And you know, one of those things, just a basic minimum, is, you know, their mum wasn't a prostitute.
Yeah. Indeed. I mean, look, I'm on the story. I'm looking closely into it, by the way. I want to be able to report on it more fulsomely. But as I say, I am told that a deal has been done between the newspapers, and that's why it hasn't been reported on widely. And I think it is worth pointing out that Zach Polanski, of course, does want prostitution to be legalized, doesn't he? As well as all drugs. You know, that is absolutely something worth pointing out. Well, we've covered it all. today, Leo Kearse. Bloody hell. Bloody hell, but it has been a pleasure to have you here. And Leo, your tickets for your incredible tour at leokearse.com.
That's right, yeah, leokearse.com. You can get the tickets there. I think I'm coming to Barnstaple next, and then I'm coming to Stafford, sold out, but I'm coming to Dudley and London. You can see me in London. I'm going to be filming my special at the Backyard Comedy Club on the 17th of May. So yeah, get tickets now before they sell out.
Amazing. 17th of May, goodness me, is that, I'm just thinking, I've got an idea in my head, is that not literally the day after Unite the Kingdom? It is. That is the day after the Unite the Kingdom rally. So, Leo, that has got to be part of your sell, because you know there's going to be a hell of a lot of patriots who are coming into London for Unite the Kingdom, staying the weekend. So come and do Unite the Kingdom on Saturday and go and see Leo the day up. Like, that's like the ultimate patriotic weekend in London. So I think that's a good surefire bet, because I know some people will just come in for the day, but you will get others who are making a weekend of it in London and braving Sadiq Khan's Islamist city for the weekend.
Well, and you can come and see me make fun of all the Islamism in London after that. And I know that, the people at that rally, they're going to be up for the biggest laugh. People like that are always the best audience, because they got no pretensions. They see it like it is, and they're up for having a laugh.
Yeah, as soon as you said that weekend, I'm like, oh my goodness, because we have huge plans, by the way, here on Outspoken. We are providing live coverage of Unite the Kingdom all day on Saturday, the 16th of May. We had well over 1 million of you watching last year. So if you can't make it to London, of course, we do encourage people to make it to London. But if you can't make it to London, special coverage on Saturday, May the 16th of Unite the Kingdom here on Outspoken. Leo Kearse, thank you so much. We're moving over to Substack now for the Royal Uncancelled After Show with Angela Levin, but I will be back with you tomorrow live, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe right now on YouTube. Turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes. We're also available to subscribe to as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.